Andy Reid, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
So good. And I'm so excited about today because navigating hearts and minds for high performers is such an issue. And it's something that we need to put effort into and premeditate so that we continue to get the best results from ourselves. So I really wanted you to give us a perspective here. You have coached so many high performers in sales, in real estate, as an auctioneer. You've had that sphere of influence. Now, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on when you notice that people are so focused on results that they lose sight of their relationships. What
Mm,
can we do about this?
it's easier said than done, man. I mean, realistically, I can talk to my own uh, fails when it comes to this, right? Because it's really interesting. For a lot of people, success is something that they are wholly and solely focused on. And for a number of other people, they might be in, relationships that they value, that they treasure, and all that sort of stuff. But they think that their role within that relationship is to just work your backside off and just keep working and keep working and we keep working to provide for the family, right? I was one of the latter, and what I soon discovered was that yes, money does make the world go round. So let's not get all hippie and happy clappy about it, right? Of course, it's something that we all need, and it creates choice and whatever. But there is a fine line between trying to make loads and loads of money and understanding when it's enough in order for you to make sure that you enjoy it with your loved ones. I always used to think that, and it used to aggravate me when I used to get a little bit of grief off the mother of my kids, and because of the fact that I'm either not home or I'm home late, and I'm like, well, I was out listing properties. I had an appointment at 8. Like, what do you want me to do? Realistically, gang, as wonderful as money can be, people are with us for us. And there's no point having all this money if you've got no one to share it with, right? There's no point having abundance if you've got no one to share it with. Might as well not have it. So yeah, that's my own personal experience around that was, and it really does take annoyingly. I've been having this conversation with a couple of people recently. It's really annoying how human beings have to have something disastrous happen in order for us to actually make a change. And I
Yeah, some sort of snap point. Yeah.
and I wish I could find some sort of formula that prevents people from having to hit the wall as hard as what they need to. But generally speaking, in this scenario, it has to be either a very brave partner in a relationship who stands up and goes, "Look, we got to sort this out, right? Because this ain't working for me," or it's generally an external force of some description, which is really crap. But I mean, look, if you can even give yourself a glimmer of self awareness around it, maybe you have a chance. It's not easy.
Mm. No, it's really not. Actually, there's two things that I want to tease out a little bit with you there. Firstly, where you mentioned that making money can become your identity. I think that is really a situation that if we're deprived of our identity, we know that that creates such stress, such a trauma in our body that we'll do anything to fulfill our identity again. So for traders, that does represent in forced trades. They're taking trades that they have no business taking. It represents in stress and not doing either the adequate research or doing too much research. It's almost like it's a dichotomy that it brings about in a trader. So you would have seen that with the high performance individuals you've been coaching as well.
Oh, big time. I mean, the amount of times that I have had to say to people that not all business is good business. Because of the fact that they're chasing the win because that's what they feel validates their existence. Coming to the identity question, the identity topic, it's obvious to me that society, as a society, we have all got a big fat identity crisis, massive one. If we're looking at generations coming through, psychologically, and I had to do a load of studying on this for the book. Um, they have got a huge identity because there's so much noise in the world now, right? And so therefore people can't hear themselves. And I don't care whether you are 60 or 16. It's affecting all of us because none of us can hide. None of us are living under a rock, right? And so we are all going to be impressionable to an extent, right? Unless we've done the work to truly understand our DNA and our identity and who we are, and we are always going to be susceptible to the narrative that goes on around us. So and it's one of the reasons, right? And that's where I've made the link, because it's one of the reasons why you're seeing so many more protests these days, right? It's
Yeah.
not because anybody, I mean, you have got your professional protesters and those that just want to be a pain in the backside for the sake of it. But I like to think cup half full about people. And a lot of people, they need to identify with something greater than themselves in order to validate their existence, right? And it's the same with traders, right? It's the same with real estate agents. A lot of the time, they will really, really struggle to walk away from a deal because their head's telling them that that's what they need to do. But you know for a fact that your gut's telling you that this is a bad idea, right? And that you talk about the dichotomy is that it's the archetypal heart versus head thing, or gut versus head. And the narrative that's been growing in momentum around this has been this whole topic of authenticity in everything that you do. And from a trader floor, it's all well and good going for the kill and being the shark and all the rest of it, right? But ultimately, society, yes, obviously some people are just wanting the dollars and the Yankee Doodle and whatnot, and that's fair, fine. But you got to live with yourself,
Mm.
right? You got to live with yourself, and at the end of the day, there's only one person that you do have to answer to, and that is yourself.
Yeah.
So I think, especially in such a money-driven industry like trading, it's what the money represents that you need to ask, that you need to answer. Is it representing you? Is it representing your reputation? Is it just a barometer for the hard work you're putting in? Right? If that's the case, then at least you got a little bit more control over it, because it means, right, okay, well, I don't want to work as hard now. Okay, that's all right. My barometer's going to drip down a little bit, and I'm cool with that, because that's what I identify it as. It's external to me. It's just a barometer for where my motivation lies. But if you pander to the narrative that a lot of society panders to, one, you're not alone. But two, it's going to hurt you soon, if not already.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and one of the other things you mentioned is that how do you know that enough is enough? Because I'll tell you a little story. It's so hard to know, isn't it? Because we keep on upscaling our impressions about how much we need. In actual fact, it's how much we want. When I was in Vietnam, I was sitting next to this little old grandmother in Sapa in a tribal village. And there was a translator, a little cheeky babe who I just loved and I still stay in touch with. Her name was Me. And Me was translating so I could understand what the grandmother was saying. Now, the grandmother's role in this particular scenario, and I'm sure in others that the village had, was to work out when there was enough firewood collected for the winter. So, in a very strange turn of events, she's sitting there completely silent, watching all the people gather firewood, and then she lets out this screech in Vietnamese, and everybody just stopped and went, "Okay, we go about our day now because enough is enough." She knew when enough was enough because she had seen so many winters. Whereas actually, we don't have that internal barometer of how much is enough for us, for our family. We feel like it will never be enough, and that keeps us on the treadmill. Your thoughts?
It's what drove me into a loony bin, pretty much. Is the desperate need for a sense of satisfaction, and by the time we reach a level of what we perceive as satisfaction, it's not that satisfying. And I was constantly chasing that. And it was actually when my old man, I was, I don't want to get all morbid about this because that was a wonderful story from Vietnam. But it was actually when I was by the bedside of my dad as he was passing away, and he had a stroke a few weeks before, and as a result of that, lost his ability to communicate. And in those final few weeks, and he was in palliative care, and I could hear his breath. I could hear him breathing. That's the only thing I could hear was him breathing. And it was then that it dawned on me, because I never had a chance to ask him if he was satisfied. The lesson that he taught me off the back of that was, while there is time in the game of life, there are always going to be opportunities to win and lose. So there's no point chasing a point of satisfaction, because essentially, while there's time, there's always time for it to change. And now I'm added to that, I'm a massive fan of Alan Watts, the British philosopher, and he talks about it linguistically, how, does there even exist? Because by the time you get there, it becomes here, right? And so can you ever get there by definition? And it's so true. It's so true. And I guess the real key to it is, I mean, if you are in a relationship and you haven't had the conversation of, when should we take the foot off the gas? Like, when are we going to be comfortable to take the foot off the gas? And I guess that's like the first question that you can ask, and then from there you create a vision board, and then reverse engineer the practicalities around that, right? And then you've got real tangible targets that will give you that sort of green light to relax and chill and do whatever it is you want to do. If you're not in a relationship, then visualize how life looks like for you if you were to say enough. I bet it doesn't involve bloody, what was the cartoon character's name? The duck who bloody rolls in money all the time and all that sort of stuff.
Scrooge McDuck.
Unless it looks like that, really, it's what the money represents, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the representation of it.
I like that. And what do you think are the early warning signs that your personal life is making you pay that type of price? So, when I had a real job before I was a trader, I was working for working for a credit management company. And I remember one time I was backing out of the driveway and I waved goodbye to my husband, and I wound down the window because he looked a bit distressed, and he said to me, "They're getting the best of you, and I'm getting what's left over." Ooh, that was very, very telling, and it did help me when the time was right, say goodbye to that job, because I don't want him just to get the leftovers, I want him to get the best of me. So how do we know as humans that we're paying too much of a price?
Well, I mean, one of your telltale signs is when your nearest and dearest are telling you, right? That's like that's an easy way of looking at it, right? And it kind of relates to what I said before. Sometimes it's actually really difficult to find it yourself, to see it yourself for yourself. It's why lots of people need coaches, because, or psychologists or whatever, because while you're in the game, it's hard to see the overall picture, right? Well, it's like wood for the trees type stuff. And if you haven't got anybody that you trust enough or have close enough to you to be able to be upfront like that, kudos to husband, by the way,
Yeah, frankly.
then it's one of those ones where, unless you are prepared to even assess, then you'll never get out, right?
Mm.
And I think if you want to exist on this planet, if you've got a reason to exist, which thankfully most people have, then you've got a duty of care to your existence to set little, like, stopping points, little checkpoints, and recalibrating, reassessing, generally on a holiday or something of that description, where you assess every element of your life. Now, is my financials sorted? Well, yes, because I've been busting my backside. Is my physical health sorted, because there's no point making money if you're going to keel over, right? What's the point? Is my spiritual life. And now that sounds, again, very happy clappy, but spiritual can come in all sorts of different forms. Faith is a topic that has become very, very prominent in a lot of my conversations. I'm not massively God-fearing or anything like that, right? But faith doesn't have to belong in a Bible. Faith can mean just having faith in oneself, having faith that what you're doing is the right thing according to what it is you want to achieve, right? That's got nothing to do with God, right? So, and assessing all the different elements, and then if you look at it in the cold light of day, when you get a chance to pause and go, oh crap, my bank balance is amazing, but I've got no mates. I've got no, like, when's the last time I just went and sat in Gold Glass and watched a movie, right? And so many of us, because we get caught up in our success,
And
we
people
just,
do isolate themselves
oh,
when things are going, rip-roaring. Like, I run a mentor program, and it's for a small group of people who really want to do well in the markets, and I've been running it for the last 25 years. So I've got to see these people grow. I've got to see their children grow up, and some of them do the mentor program. And the commonality between my top traders from my mentor program and the people who have done the course but they haven't done as well is that the top traders hang out with other traders. We've got a repeat for free course, so people can hang out with us for 25 years if they want. There's no limit to the support, but people stop themselves from accepting that support, and then their results start to deplete and go down. And that's when I just feel so sad, because if I haven't heard from somebody for 5 years and then they tell me they've been in pain, oh gosh, if they could have just hung out with me and the people that I've trained, they probably would have got a much better result. So why do people do that? What is this isolation aspect?
a couple of directions with this. Firstly, for a lot of people, the easy answer is ego, right? The easy answers is the lack of understanding of with their own vulnerabilities. I had this. I actually said it during a live show I did in 2021 during lockdown, like lockdown 17 or something. The Empire Strikes Back or whatever it was, and I said, I just slipped out. I just said, you know what? Vulnerability is the key to true professionalism. And as soon as I said it, I even stopped myself. I was like, shit, where'd that come from? I have to lie down.
Ooh.
And the reality of this, when it comes, let's stay in business mode, right? You are never, ever, ever going to reach your full potential. Not in a million years. I don't care how good you are. If you can't own your vulnerabilities, you are never going to be able to achieve to the level that you can, the level that you think you can. And the reason for that is because your ego is preventing you from letting go of the stuff you're no good at, right? It's just stopping you from doing it. Now, it might not be from a technicality point of view. You might be the best trader since sliced bread, right? But part of your skill set as a human being is to self-regulate, and it is to be able to manage your own emotions so that you can perform to the best of your ability. I don't care who you are. If you're angry, you're not going to perform as well as if you're in flow, right? It just doesn't happen. It's not how humans work. So if you can't own the things that make you angry, or own the things that make you frustrated, or own the fact that you really struggle to let go of mistakes, or you really struggle to to open up to a frustration because you see that as weakness, you're not as good as what you think you are. The end, right?
Yeah.
And then it's really interesting, right? So I went to a listing presentation once, ages ago, and it was years ago, and it was my mother and my kids. She was about to come off maternity leave, and we didn't realize it at the time, but I had some, it was undiagnosed, but I had some serious mental illness things bubbling up, right? And I didn't realize it, so I was just avoiding. And she says to me, she goes, Andy, I'm going back to work every other Wednesday, our daughter, who was 6 months old, is going to be in the house, and you're either going to be there and have a day off with her, or the dog's looking after her,
Oof.
right? And I was like, right, well, I best take a day off. And I didn't, right? And I didn't mean to do this, right? But I went to a presentation, husband and wife, and I said, as we were finished, I said, look, you can get hold of me pretty much 24/7. I'll be able to get hold of the phone. You can text me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. As I'm sure you can appreciate, I'm dealing with other clients. And then I went, except for every other Wednesday. And I just said it instinctively. And the mother goes, oh, why every other Wednesday? I said, because look, that's my designated daddy daughter day, and I'm sure you can appreciate she's more important than everyone, so it might just take me an extra couple of hours to get back to you. They stopped me from walking out and listed with me on the spot.
I love that.
I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't a sales tactic.
No.
All my best stuff is by accident, if I'm being brutally honest. But because I just acted on instinct, it just fell out of my mouth. When I said it, at first I was like, oh shit. But because that was such a massive penny drop moment for me to go, you know what? If I just own my limitations and own my restrictions, geez, this game gets easy.
Mm, yeah.
So
And I
uh,
think it's also a point here that you were in alignment. So your values were in alignment with your actions. And that means that everything slipstreams after that. Doors open that didn't open before. Things become easier. You are more comfortable in your own skin. And I see it with traders as well. The traders who are very much thinking that they have to sit in front of a screen for 8 hours a day because that's a replacement for their job. They've got it all wrong. We trade to live. You put your trading on autopilot so that you can retire early or have a supplement income coming in. It's not the other way. You don't put in the hours of work that you used to put in at your job. It's a completely different setup. Traders, the best ones, work out their values, they get themselves in alignment with that, they make sure their systems can fund those values, and as a result, their trading becomes less problematic.
well, it relates to something that I've spoken about on a few different platforms and whatnot around intrinsic motivation. Detchi came up with a study 1971 when psychology went through the roof. I reckon everybody was just on mushrooms or something in that decade. But the psychology was going bananas, and
Yeah.
he talked about autonomy, competence, and relatedness as the three key features of that basically light the fire inside you, right? And for a lot of traders, and I feel it as an auctioneer all the time. That's why I fell in love with it. It's why I became addicted to the craft of auctioneering, because I had never felt flow state until I called my first auction. It was just weird, and it had nothing to do with the attention. In fact, I actually say to people, I'm the least important person in there, right? You got owners and buyers, next big step in their lives, agents whose reputation's on the line and income, and then there's little old me just getting paid to shout at people, right? So I genuinely see myself as the least important person. As a result of that, I'm so free. And if you've got alignment, you talk about alignment, and I'll come back to that in a sec, because I think there's a gap between authenticity and alignment in society's thinking here. Because but if you've got that intrinsic motivation where you can relate, and that's the bit. If you can relate, that's the hard bit. You relate to everything that you do, i.e., your actions align with your values, like what you just said. Then that is generally the missing piece, because there are God knows however many competent people, right? That know they know what to do, and the autonomy is just having the ability to be able to do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
That third bit is what sorts out the best from the rest. The end, like it just sorts out the best from the rest. Now the alignment piece, that one there is interesting, because and with traders, much like with any service-based industry or financial service-based industry, There's three elements to alignment, right? Because it's not just gut versus brain. There's also a moral compass in the middle, right? So it's what I want to do, what I need to do, and what I ought to do. And the alignment between all three is the thing. That's the thing that can help you sleep at night, right? If you've not got one of those three, that's when you stop sleeping so well.
So
Uh,
just to reinforce that, so it's what I want to do, what I need to do, and what I ought to do. And
yeah,
you're saying that if those three questions deliver the same answer and it's
you're
in
laughing.
line with your values, that's when things start to get really fun.
You're laughing all the way to the bank, right? Because it's going to improve your financial being, right? In every way. Not only because it might not necessarily be in terms of volume, but your level of contentment with your financial being will be absolutely nailed, right? It will be absolutely nailed. That for me is the golden goose. That is the golden part at the end of the rainbow, right? If you can get total alignment between those three questions and it matches with your DNA, it doesn't get any better than that.
But what about personality? Because this is something that I've found over the years. You know, I've been trading for the last 36 years. I've come into contact with literally thousands of traders. And it's so interesting because most traders tend to be reserved rather than outgoing. They tend to be task focused
Yep.
instead of people focused.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that's the usual personality of the trader. So, what are the downsides to those types of personality traits for relationships? Is it a risk being reserved and task focused?
No, right? And the reason why it's not is because that's who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are, right? Like, screw trying to be someone else. Be you. And whoever you're meant to be with is going to accept you for you, right? I've got one of my best mates. So I've got I have a very, very small group of friends. Very small. And there's five of us in a WhatsApp. We've all been mates since we were like 8, right? And one of them is in higher middle management, I think, at Bank of England, all right, in London. And because of the other four are all in England, right? And he's as dry as it comes. He's as logical as it gets. He's got one of the best sense of humor known to man, but he is so metronomic. It's not even funny, right? I'm like the opposite. I'm Captain Chaos. He loves order, right? But he's got a loving relationship with a spouse who is in a similar field, right? The thing that's giving him the arrows is the fact that they've got two boys that are causing chaos, which obviously makes both of them fry. But that's fine, right? That's what kids are supposed to do. And they're cool. They're happy. So I don't buy into this narrative that just because you're reserved and whatever, that that you can that means you're not allowed to have good relationships. I'm going to call BS on it. I think that the only time you're going to struggle to build proper relationships if you try and be something that you're not, then you're in deep trouble, because then you're going to create a false impression and a false perception of who you are that you won't be able to live with. It will come crashing down at some point. That's what something that I have done. It's often referred to as people pleasing. When humble becomes humility, right? When you become a doormat and you're not aligned with who you are, and therefore you're not confident in who you are, and you become very, very lonely internally. Externally, might have a whole bunch of friends, right? It's why do you think so many people that have, and again, to go morbid for a little bit, but it's probably important. A lot of the time, people that commit suicide are people that you wouldn't think would commit suicide. They are people that would be the life and soul of the party, that would be, laughing and joking and all the rest of it, right? And they're the larrikin, right? But what no one sees, no one gets to see, is the level of loneliness that they've got going on inside themselves. Um,
Especially for men as well.
oh,
I think when you look at marriage breakdowns, often the female is the one that takes the friendship group with them, and we end up with quite a few at-risk, lonely, middle-aged men. Now, I did read a piece of research that if that does describe your situation, I get where you're coming from. You are not alone. If you can have one high quality conversation, it doesn't matter who with, but one quality conversation every day, that is the difference between you finding meaning in life, living to your full potential, or potentially the other eventuality.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So a really good way to put this into a context that makes it feasible for those chaps who feel that it isn't for them and, you know, that's not for me and blah, 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 is treat your brain like a muscle, because that's what it is, right? The more you work out your brain, the more reps you do, the stronger it becomes. I have had for over 10 years now, and I've been seeing her for like probably once every 2, 3 weeks on average for 10 years, nonstop. Is my doctor that I got thrown into the lap of when it really hit the fan for me, and I called Lifeline because it was about to come to an end, and I got thrown at Dr. Marie. It was like an emergency thing, and I've been seeing her ever since, right? But it turned from crisis into what I now refer to her as a mental PT. She's my brain PT, right? Where we work out, like we'll do an hour and we're working out, and it's not necessarily about me cracking the sads. After a lot of the time, it's not, right? A lot of the time, like majority of the time now, it's not. But I'll go into it and I'll send her a message before saying I really want to dig into this, and it'll be some topic that I'm marinating on, right? Whatever it is, because despite my very very simple sounding accent, I tend to think about a lot of stuff, and so I go there and we just have it out. Sometimes we debate, sometimes we argue, but it's awesome, right? And you walk out there going, right, yep, cool, great, wonderful. And it just makes you feel like your brain's a little bit more stronger and it can withstand pressure to a greater extent. For a lot of middle-aged chaps, they tend to look towards the bottom of a bottle first, than they do much else.
Yeah, screen it, cover it, bury it.
Or they refer to things as escapism, right? If you're in a position, if you've ever said to yourself, and this is a word to the listeners, this is speaking of experience. If you find yourself saying to yourself, or even joking about it to friends or family, that you need to escape, right? That's the bloody SOS flare going up right there. You should never need to escape from your life, right? And this is a general point. People that want to, and that's how people sell. That's how the travel agents sell holidays, right? Escape to the this, escape to the that. If you're having to escape anywhere, you've got some fundamental issues in the foundation of your life. Deep, like you do, you
Such
do.
a good point. Oh, and this is part of redefining success as well. I know in your book, Success Curious, that is a major component of getting that book to land solidly. Tell me more about redefining success.
So probably the best lesson is actually when I was writing the bloody thing in the first place, and a lady who we both know rather well.
And we
Um,
should actually dedicate this to her. She introduced us, Leslie Williams, the managing director of Major Street Publishing. Leslie was my very first editor. Back in 1996, my first book came out in 1997, and she's the editor and publisher and creator of the actual book itself, even though you wrote the book, of course, of Success Curious.
so partway through the first chunk of the book, and I'm getting major insecurities, right? Major, like, who the hell's going to read this? And I'm trying to be something I'm trying to like be all Shakespearean and use big words because I know a few, not many, but I know a few that have got more than a couple of syllables, right? And so I'm trying to be all Shakespearean and whatnot, and I'm getting massive insecurity. So I send a chunk through to her. She sends me one line, a one sentence email back, not even a hi Andy. It's Andy dot dot dot. Where's all the swearing? And so I'm like, so I was a bit confused. So I called her and I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, no, what do you mean? What is this?" And I went, "Well, I'm trying to be clever, man. I'm trying to sound intelligent and, use big words. So it makes me, makes it look all clever and credible and all this." And she goes, "Andy, being clever doesn't suit you." And I went, "You bitch." And she goes, no, just listen. I'm like, okay. She goes, "Andy, millions of people know what you know, but it's not what you know that got you the deal. It's who you are." I was like, oh, okay. So I started again. And now it's to the point where people ask me if AI wrote it, right? It's always a question gets asked to authors. I'm like, you read the first page and a half, you tell me if AI wrote it, right? There's no AI. There's no AI. It's going to sound like that. Anyway, so my point is the definition of success is it's relating to that societal issue that we have that we are defined by the perception, not the reality in society these days, right? It's an unfortunate truth. You don't blame social media because social media is an inanimate object. It's how humans have used it that's been the problem, right? And for a lot of people, they define their definition of success is whatever information they've consumed from other people, right? It's the envy of others that defines the success of self. And I was like, and again, because I've walked the path, I nearly brought myself to an end a couple of times, right? Off the back of this. And when you are living a life that's not yours, it's never going to end well. And so for me, the whole point of the book really, it was supposed to be something different and it evolved because I am generally a very cup half full kind of guy. And so there's loads of clippings on the floor that would probably make another book. But there's a lot more down to mental health stuff. But realistically, success has to come from inside out. It has to. If it goes outside in, it's never going to win. That's a really cool phrase.
That
If,
word.
if it goes outside in, it's never going to win, because ultimately, the thing that's going to determine whether something is successful, because success is purely subjective, right? Right? It's that whole another man's trash, one man's trash, another man's treasure type stuff. But realistically, success is only defined by the value that we put on anything, and that comes from our DNA, right? That comes from within. So, and again, the whole chasing satisfaction thing is because I was living to a narrative that wasn't it wasn't congruent with who I am. It wasn't in line with who I am. So, the whole book, it starts with key basics, and we go from ancient philosophy into biblical, into all sorts of little spots trying to define success in different parts of the history. And then it goes relatively practical, but it basically asks people to help themselves through my mistakes, right? Because there's too many ivory towers kicking around the world these days, way too many. So I thought,
Yeah.
"Bull, I don't belong in an ivory tower." So success, it has to come from inside out. And for a lot of people, whenever I'm in a room and I do a talk, and I ask everybody in a room, I do it all the time. I ask everybody in a room, can they define success according to their DNA? And I get that. I get crickets. And it's a bit of a whack to start off with, right? But that's kind of my point. If you can't define success in a sentence, then you got some work to do on yourself, right? You
Mm.
got to work out who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, it's like anything. It's like any product. It's like a stock. You can't sell what you don't know. That's just sales 101. You have to know your product. And realistic, in real terms, in the context of this conversation, you can't sell yourself if you don't know who you are.
Andy Reid from andyreid.com.au. As a final question, if there is a trader listening right now and they have noticed that they've become emotionally distant from the people that are close to them, or perhaps they're too outcome focused, what's your advice so that that person can start reconnecting?
Firstly, actually realizing that you are, that's the biggest win. That's the hardest bit. The rest of it's relatively consequential. But so many people realize it, but then they think that that's them at the bottom of the mountain, right? And the mountain looks crazy scary. The truth is, the second that you realize that you are emotionally distant, that's kind of you at the top of the mountain, really. It's all downhill from there. It's all pretty easy going from there. The first thing that if you recognize that and you're too outcome focused, ask yourself the question, what do these outcomes represent? What do these outcomes represent? Do these outcomes reflect who I am as a human? Right? If they do, then the people that you're emotionally distant from, they probably won't be that emotionally distant from you, because if they know you that well and if they are that emotionally attached to you, if the outcomes that you're gunning for genuinely do represent you as a human being, they'll be cool with it, right? And you're just busy and you're just focused on getting stuff done. That's cool. But if they don't align with who you are, if you're looking at those outcomes and going, what's it all for? Why? Then that's when you got to hit pause, right? The world's going to keep turning whether we like it or not. Bills still need to be paid, lights still need to be turned on, all the rest of it. So there's a certain degree of practicality to this. I hate it when people say, "Oh, just get yourself away for a break," or because life dictates that life will tell you that you're not allowed to because you're too busy, whether you've got obligations to work or family, kids, whatever. You can't just down tools, right? We don't live in the lap of luxury. But when I say pause, just give yourself just half a step of breathing space from your existence. That doesn't mean you have to go away for weeks. It could just mean you turn your phone off for an hour. Just start with an hour. I think one of the big problems why people get so intimidated by progressing their lives and progressing them, developing as a human being, is because of the fact that they feel that they need to make big changes, right? In order to invoke change in me, I need to make big changes to my life, right? And reality won't let you do that. And the sooner you accept that, the quicker you can make things happen. And I'm a massive fan of Sir Dave Brailsford, Team Sky, the aggregation of incremental gains, where he took over a team that was absolute dog crap. Never won a Tour de France ever, and was connected to Team GB, which is probably why Australia won all the medals ever in cycling, right? And he goes, right, I'm not going to be able to make wholesale changes here, but I'm going to assess every single little element of every single thing that's related to this team and try and improve it just by 1%. Like to the point where he was testing pillows that the riders slept on the tour, right? Everything, right? The rate of change and the scale of change just by making small incremental changes, dead easy ones, right? Because they're only little ones. They won 3 out of the next 4 Tour de France's, and they never won one before, right? And then in 2012, we absolutely destroyed the Aussies in the cycling. We destroyed everyone, right? It was like one of the best teams ever assembled in any sport ever, right? So my point is, as long as you improve by by at least 1%, just get a tiny bit better, right? Then you've made an amount of progress. Now, some days you're going to progress heaps because you're in a mode and you're good and you're rocking and rolling. And some days it's just going to be a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. But that's okay too, because it's still contributing. Right? And you look at fitness, and I'll end on this. Fitness is the easiest example, right? It's the easiest, most obvious example. When people want to get fit, they go, right, I'm going to get fit. I'm going to go to the gym 10 times a day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat nothing but rabbit food. I am awesome. I'm going to meal prep for the next month. I'm great, right? Best intentions. Reality lasts about a day and a half, right? And then something happens at work, or your kid gets sick, or the car breaks down, or something like that, right? This thing called life gets in the way. Let go of trying to make big changes. Just focus on making a tiny little one every single day. And if you make more, awesome. But at least you're making something happen. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to make wholesale changes, because it kills you. That does actually kill you.
I have loved having you on the show. Thank you for joining me on Talking Trading. And for Andy's listeners, if you're curious about how trading the share market can help you not only retire early, but live the life that you know you are destined to live without too much stress, then come to see me. My website, my primary website is tradinggame.com.au. You can download my free trading plan template and my 5-part video course called Trading Made Simple, and drop me a line. My goodness, Trading Made Simple will set you on the right path to making money out of trading. And Andy, how can people stay in touch with you?
Well, you can pretty much get a carrier pigeon to me now. I'm one of the easier guys to find. AndyReid.com.au. I like simplicity. It's one of my core values. Andy Reid Coaching on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm very, very up and about. So you can DM me, you can message me, you can email me, Andy@AndyReid.com.au. Keeping it nice and simple. But yeah, there's going to be a load of people that will listen to this. They've probably pissed so much money down the drain on crypto because they think that that's trading, which is probably, yeah, it's exactly. I could just see, I was looking at it, was literally looking for your face for a reaction as soon as I said it. I knew that was going to cause a reaction, right? I just knew it. Right. So gang, stop wasting your money and speak to Louise, please, because she knows way more than you.
Andy, what a pleasure. So until the very next episode, happy trading for all of the traders. And Andy, how would you like to sign off?
Stay safe, healthy, happy, my friends, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Fantastic.